Hi, my name is Kendra, and I sold photos of myself for money. Little did I know that would lead me to being kicked out of school and losing everything. I never had a lot of money growing up. My mom was a single mom, so she did what she could for us. When I turned 18 and entered my senior year, my mom lost her job. Things got a little scary. I should have been planning for college, excited about my future, but instead I was worrying if we had enough to eat. I could hear my mom crying herself to sleep at night. Honestly, I was hurting all the time. I felt like I was watching my promising future just wither and die in front of my eyes. Of course, my mom and I never talked about it. She didn't even tell me she got fired. I noticed when her severance check came to the house. From that moment on, I knew things would be hard. To begin with, I didn't live in a wealthy neighborhood. Really, none of us had money except for some of the popular kids. My best friend growing up, Melody, had the same financial situation as me. So we bonded a lot. Well, I should say she used to have the same financial situation as me. Around the time my mom got fired, right after we turned 18, Melody started showing up to school with fancy clothes. She looked like a supermodel. She was wearing brand names. She had new dye in her hair. She had even used whitening strips. That was money we never had in our lives. I didn't ask her about it because honestly, I assumed the way she was getting it wasn't good. She had always had sticky fingers, and I didn't want to get dragged in it if she was stealing, which was hard because while she looked like a model, I was wearing torn, used clothes to school. I loved thrifting, but I was wearing shirts that had stains on them. Shirts my mom had had for 20 years because we couldn't even afford to buy thrift clothes. One day, Melanie noticed how thin I had gotten. When we sat down to eat lunch, she offered to take me off campus and sit at a restaurant with her. I hadn't been to a restaurant in years. When we sat down, she took me by the hands and told me the truth. She had been selling photos of her feet for money. I'll admit, I laughed and cringed at first too. What kind of people would want to see that? So you can imagine my surprise when she showed me how much she was making per week. Suddenly, the gross, funny thing she was doing seemed like an actual option for me. It seemed like a way out of poverty. After all I had to do was take pictures of my feet, right? I went home that night and locked myself in my bedroom. I felt so uncomfortable, but I uploaded a picture of my feet, just sitting on the ground. Suddenly, I was being flooded with comments. Some were telling me to clip my toenails, and others were saying that they liked them the way they were. I felt embarrassed and weird. And then my first earnings popped up. Someone requested more photos. Just like that, I wasn't poor anymore. The next day, I got to eat like a normal person. I started taking photos and uploading them more and more. People asked me for innocent things, and I was relieved because my face was never in the photos. Before I knew it, my profile was popping up. Apparently, my feet had the right stuff. I couldn't tell my mom what I was doing, so I just started hiding money in her pockets and her drawers, hoping she'd find it and think she had lost it. Apparently, it worked because every once in a while, I saw my mom smile, which I hadn't seen in years. Soon, I was the one showing up to school in nice clothes. Melody and I started hanging out with the popular kids who wouldn't even look at us before. And I even managed to get a boyfriend, Micah. For a while, everything was awesome. I'd go home, take pictures, then go out with my friends. That is, until Melody glared at me in the hallway one day. When I asked her what was going on, she rolled her eyes. I lost one of my regular customers to you today, she said. She told me if I didn't stop taking photos, it was going to ruin her. I loved Melody, and she had came up with it first, so I felt some loyalty to her. I went home and looked into other photos. Nothing that showed, my bits, but other weird things. You can imagine my surprise when I found a site for elbow photos. You know how hard it is to take an elbow photo? I wasn't making as much as the feet pictures, and then someone told me a way I could. I would have to send a video of me trying to lick peanut butter off my elbow. It felt embarrassing, demoralizing, but the money they were offering would solve my problems for a while. So I did it, and let me tell you, I looked dumb. Even worse, I got scammed. I sent the video and then the money fell through, so it was all for nothing. Suddenly, I was broke again. So I went back to feet pics. I promised myself I would be subtle and I wouldn't try to make more than Melody. But that didn't work. The second I started posting again, I was making bank. I text Melody to talk to her about it, but she ignored me. I felt terrible, but I had no idea how terrible I was going to feel the next day. I walked into school and there were photos of me licking peanut butter off my elbow on almost every locker. Kids in the hall were watching the video and laughing at me. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Melody had outed me because I went back to doing feet pics. Within an hour, all my friends turned on me. Micah dumped me, calling me disgusting. I was called into the office. I expected the principal to ask me who did it, but instead, he lectured me about my disgusting behavior and told me he wouldn't have my kind at the school. I told him I had stopped, but he didn't care. He told me to pack my locker and leave. He couldn't afford to have me tarnish the school's reputation. But just like that, I lost my senior year. My final few months of high school with the people I had grown up with. Fortunately, because I was 18, he wasn't going to tell my mom. When I walked over to clean my locker out, Melody was standing there. She told me if I told anyone about her feet pics, they wouldn't believe me. Truthfully, that hurt the worst of all. I would never hurt Melody that way. And the fact that she thought I would broke my heart. I threw my stuff in a bag and walked home. I was so torn up about everything that I didn't even think about what might be waiting for me when I opened my front door. My mom was sitting at the kitchen table with her head in her hands. Had she heard about my expulsion somehow? It should have come to no surprise when she put a picture on the table and told me she found it on the front door with a link to my foot and elbow pages. I tried to explain that it wasn't as gross as she thought, but that's not what it was about. If you were worried about money, we should have talked about it, she said. I told her I had been worried about money my whole life. For the first time ever, we were talking about our financial situation. My mom apologized for not being able to support me and for scaring me. Hearing those words made me feel grateful and sad at the same time. I told her I knew she was trying her hardest and that I wished I could help more. We talked for hours about our finances, and for the first time ever, I felt like my mom and I understood each other. She was disappointed about the photos. It was dangerous and really hurt my reputation. But at the same time, she told me I didn't deserve what Melody did to me. A real friend would never hurt you like that. Since that conversation, I've earned my GED. My relationship with my mom has completely changed, and honestly, I'm thankful it happened. Money can be a tough subject to talk about with family, but sometimes it can lead to everyone getting the comfort and validation they need. Communication about life is so important in your relationships, even when it's uncomfortable. Now, I work as a waitress. I don't make much, but I'm proud of the work I do. I've even started making new friends.
Did you like this story?